welcome to Plain Civics. I'm Joe Ullery.
And I'm Bobby Fisher.
Thank you for joining us. And today, Bobby and I break down how government works so you can make the government work for you. And you've got a topic picked out for today.
I do. We're going to sort out news and information in 2025.
Boy, can we do that in one episode?
We're going to try.
All right. We're going to do our best on that. But before we get there, Bobby, we're going to do what we call the Fast Five.
The Fast Five.
Today, I'm in the hot seat.
You're in the hot seat, and we're doing short questions this time. Okay, here we go. Number one, the original Top Gun or Top Gun Maverick?
Oh my God, I haven't even seen the second one, so I have to go with the original on that one.
Question two, Cher or Aretha Franklin?
You're asking a gay guy. I mean, come on. I have Cher's our spokesperson. I know, R-E-S-P-E-C-T.
Woman of soul.
Find out what it means to me. But I love Aretha. I love her. I do. I love her. And that girl can sing, but I mean, I have to pick Cher.
Number three, swimming pool or beach?
Swimming pool. Okay. Once you get that sand in your car, you can never get it completely swept out.
All right, number four, MASH or I Love Lucy?
Oh my gosh.
It's a hard one, but I'm I Love Lucy.
I'm going to say MASH. I love MASH.
They're both really great comedies. This may be the toughest. I don't know.
Okay, this is the last one.
Last one. Chocolate chip or cutout Christmas cookies?
Buttercream icing, cutout cookies. Okay. Definitely. No, I'm not going to turn down a chocolate chip. Just don't bring me anything with raisins.
Oh, no problem. I wouldn't put those in there anyway. That would ruin them.
That was a fun one. Okay. Yeah, that's not a cookie.
Next time the questions are going to be a little bit longer.
Essay questions. Explain your work. All right, so let's get to work here today.
And now our feature presentation.
News and information is bombarding us 24/7, no matter whether it's TV, the radio, if you're on your computer, your phone, your watch.
We've both gotten those today just sitting here, either the weather or news.
Times have changed greatly over the last 25 years. First, with the internet, which has been around more than 25 years, but it really came more into prevalence within the last 25 to 30 years. 24/7 availability with news on the TV and the radio. Remember way back, I'm sure when you were still a kid, then TV signed off at midnight. They played the Star Spangled Banner, and then
the color test pattern came on.
And at night, the radio station either went blank or they just had a playlist that.
Oh no, I can tell you exactly. So 1989, picture it, Logan Sport, WSAL. I'm 17, probably pushing at work until 11 p.m. on a Sunday night,
right?
By law. And last thing we did at the end of the day is this concludes our broadcast day. Thank you for listening. We broadcast from a tower that's located at this address, and Star Spangled Banner, and shut down the
just went blank. Bigger stations maybe left on, but it was not with a disc jockey. It was
absolutely
just pre-made playlist or whatever.
Yeah, so TV and radio used to sign off at the end of the day.
Yeah, and we still have newspapers out there that, although they're becoming less and less prevalent, they do still exist. So you get bombarded from all of these different media sources. I'm going to put a little side note out here. I'm just going to say right now, free press. As we go on with this, I want people to keep in mind that our First Amendment, which we've talked about a little bit before, guarantees freedom of press, which is extremely important in a democracy. And we're not the only country that has that in our Constitution. Most democratic countries do. We rely on journalists to tell us what the government is doing. The press has to remain independent from the government. Look no further than the role of the free press in bringing to light the corruption, for example, in the Nixon administration back in the 1970s. It's what we now know as the Watergate scandal. Had we not had a free press and people in the press willing to investigate, Watergate scandal might have gone unnoticed, and Nixon may have stayed on as president, and there was all kinds of corruption going on there. So we have the free press to thank for that.
Full disclosure, I'm a reporter and news anchor for Public News Service. I cover Indiana, but we cover the United States, and we are part of the group based in Indiana that's called Free Press Indiana, and that is a source of pride for me.
It's extremely important. I think sometimes people forget about that, that we don't want the government telling which reporters or which news companies can be in any of our government, whether it's local, state, federal. We don't want them kicking people out And
I am personally offended and appalled at the decision that the White House made, barring the Associated Press reporter from participating, doing their job over something as silly as what we call the Gulf of Mexico.
Right.
And now the White House, again, at the risk of sounding political, but again, it's personal to me, is the White House is picking the reporters that will be part of a press pool. And for people that don't know, a press pool follows the president everywhere he goes. If the president goes on vacation, there's a group that's selected by a press organization that's assigned, and there's a print press pool reporter and a radio and TV, and they cover everything the president does. For the White House to dictate who can or cannot be part of that is sort of a censorship, what is said about what the president is doing, in my opinion.
Same thing with, and again, we're just speaking facts right now. It's not political, but this White House has also rearranged the Pentagon press pool, and they've kicked out some long-time news organizations. I know NBC was one of them. These organizations have paid to have their own equipment and lines and so forth running there, and that were kicked out of their usual spots and they've brought in and given precedence to some other groups. They all should have an opportunity, the same ability to cover.
First of all, when you think of the news media, it's sad that we have to think there are sides, because when I started working as a broadcaster in news, I was taught you report both sides. You report what the opponents of this think. You also report what the proponents think of this. So to think that because you might ask a tough question, it's made more difficult for you to do your job should worry folks.
And actually, that takes us into the second part of what I had down for us to talk about, and that is journalistic ethics. So I did some research, and I compiled a list of the ethics that journalists are supposed to be their responsibility to follow. And one thing it said in everything I looked at said to seek and report the truth accurately and fairly. And this involves verifying sources, providing context, and avoiding clickbait headlines. And I want to take an aside there about if people haven't heard the term clickbait before, it's really become, much more prevalent with the internet and social media and those acting or trying to act as our news sources. But even on news sites, it's putting a sensationalized or misleading headline to attract you to click on it so you'll see what it says. And then, I've done that sometimes, even though I think I already know, but I just want to see. And, what they're telling about is nothing at all like what the headline says. But they just want you to, they want
the traffic. And they want the traffic because the more traffic you get, the more advertising you can sell. You can sell to the really big boys if you've got all the internet traffic. So an example of that might be they put celebrities that died in 2024, and then they put a picture of someone who's still alive, and you click on it, and that person's actually not dead, but they got you to click.
Right.
And that counts as a hit for traffic.
Yeah, I've done some of those where it's like, look at the celebrities, look at their new looks, and the one that they have on there, it never even shows up in the list of pictures that you click through.
Yeah, so there's plenty of clickbait out there.
Yeah, but keep in mind, we want some key words there, truth and fairness, and I think that goes back to what you were talking about. But here are some of the ethics points that each of these places I looked at point out. Accuracy. So you want to give the relevant facts, but you also need to disclose any limitations that you may have had in your reporting. You want fairness. So you give a fair opportunity for reply and balance of stories by considering, as you said, all of the sides.
And there might be times where you reach out to both sides and only one side responds, but as a responsible reporter, you still mention in your story, we reached out and did not receive a reply or comment.
And I see that quite often on the shows that I like to watch. The next one is independence, that reporters should be independent and not acting on behalf of any special interests, or if you maybe are, let's say, married to somebody that works for lobbyists, let's say, that you disclose that, say, now in all fairness, or full disclosure, yes, I'm married to so-and-so, and you're...
Absolutely. You might report on a story that's on saving white rhinos, right? Under our setup, we receive funding from lots of corporations. In fact, we're sitting in the Westfield Public Library, which is something that started from Andrew Carnegie or Carnegie. I'm sorry, I always get corrected on
I've heard it both ways.
Yeah, if the Carnegie Foundation is giving you money to operate your newsroom and you do a story that benefits them, if you're legitimate, you have a disclosure on your story.
Right.
When you see those kind of disclosures, you know you're dealing with legitimate operations.
Right. And this next one, I was actually it made me stop and think for a minute, and it just said humanity. Journalists need to be aware of the impact of their words on others and balance the public's need for information against potential harm. And that just kind of took me back that, you really need to think about what it is you're saying.
Words have meaning.
They do.
And words sometimes have effects.
And then that leads to the last one, which is accountability. Journalists should be accountable for their reporting.
Absolutely. You should stand behind every single word you put in your story. And if you cannot, then you don't add that part to your story.
And if you didn't tell that...
In my opinion, you lose your legitimacy.
Right.
When you don't disclose those conflicts or those things that need disclosed, it's not a news story.
I looked at several different resources on journalistic ethics, but basically those were the 5 things that were the basis to create the trust between journalists and us, the public. We're the consumers. They're the ones giving the information, and we should be able to trust that they're being fair and balanced in what they're telling us.
And I'm not sure if we'll get into this part or not, but I also want to say for the record, I used to work for a news talk radio station. And lots of folks think when you turn on a news talk radio station, everything you hear is news. And that is not the case. You'll maybe hear the news at the top of the hour that's fair and balanced and accurate and report both sides. But then when the show starts, it's an opinion show, and opinions aren't news. And that happens on TV too.
And I was going to say, and that kind of takes us into the next part because, a lot of the shows that you see, especially on the cable news shows, same thing. They may tell you some news, but they're also likely going to talk a lot about their opinions and so forth, some of which might be based on somebody's background or, whatever they did, like their job or whatever, but sometimes it may just strictly be their opinions on things that are happening. So, with this in mind, I'll just pose this question out there to our listeners. Are all of the so-called news shows, publications, or internet sites that you visit and that are they really hosted by real journalists?
Right.
You really need to ask yourself. I'm going to tell you the answer to that is a big fat no. That's why you, as the consumers of the so-called news, need to be aware of the information and the news that you're consuming.
Fact check it.
All of these networks have web pages, and they'll have their list of their correspondents or hosts of these shows. They should tell anyway what their background is, like their educational background. You can find out, are they really a journalist? Did they do some other job for many years and now they just like to get on there and talk and give their opinions? Maybe the website, news organization's website doesn't get specific. You can always Google them, and I'm sure that if they're a known commodity out there in the news business, they're going to have maybe their own page that explains their background, or Wikipedia or whatever. You can check all that. You can see, is this person really a journalist? Do they have any really journalistic experience?
Something else you can do is change the channel and see what the other folks are talking about. Don't just turn on the same channel every single day, and that's the only source you get.
And if you hear somebody saying on a different channel saying something different,
see what the other channel
then do some investigating.
Yeah.
You don't have, and don't do it on the TV. You've got your computer or your phone or whatever. Look it up yourself, and we're going to talk about some ways to do that in just a minute.
Perfect.
One other thing I wanted to mention besides the so-called news shows is there's a lot of memes that float around on the social media sites. I'm thinking Facebook in particular, but other ones as well, that are typically, not always, but typically not reliable information. Usually if I see one and I'll start researching it, and I'm sure this friend probably doesn't like me anymore, but I researched this one and found facts, and the meme was like, it listed like 5 things and every one of them was totally incorrect.
So just because it's on a pretty picture with 4 bullet points, anybody can make that
Right.
up.
Oh, this had a beautiful background and it was bullet pointed out, and it was like about Social Security, but every one of the points was patently false. And it was easy to find.
And those things get posted and they trigger people. And then Sally shares it. And then Sally's 5 friends share it. And then it becomes viral. And then there's this battle between trying to say that original information was wrong.
But it was on there. I saw it. It's true.
And it's true. You're wrong.
Yeah.
So there's like this vicious cycle of bad information that's going around. And it really, as a journalist, it makes our job that much
Right.
harder. In fact, people really don't like journalists very well anymore because we're usually trying to point the truth out in those situations.
I'm sure some of my friends think I'm the meme Nazi now.
But I will also say there are some clever memes that are true.
Yeah, so
and you
that's
can
what I said.
research them.
Sometimes they're okay.
And they're effective.
And once in a while, meme, whoever creates them, will put their source or sources on there. But I would say 90% of the time, it's just,
Right.
here's this, it looks pretty. It's, looks professional, but
Easy
it's
to
wrong.
share, and so then it snowballs and becomes this bigger false information snowball. And now a lot of social media platforms are no longer fact checking
Exactly.
things, and so it's become the Wild West. And what is true?
And it's easier to sit there and say, oh, okay, and believe that than take the time to actually do what I did and look up all of the 5 points that were on there and that were easy to find. They were not correct.
And it's easy to do when it's something you agree with, whether
Exactly.
it's true or not.
Right. So we talked about journalistic ethics and talking about how do you know news shows are really news? Are they being presented by journalists? How do you figure out the truth? I found this is actually, I realized I use it. I just didn't know it had an acronym. It's SIFT.
SIFT. I've not heard of it.
SIFT. Stop, investigate, find, trace. I say be skeptical.
I like it that you say be skeptical, because that makes me go back to a bullet you had earlier, because really what we're sharing, we're responsible for, and you have humanity as one of those things. And when you're sharing stuff that you've not fact checked, it hurts humanity.
My thing is, any of these things, these memes or clickbaits or whatever, you need to be skeptical of, and you need to do the sift. Stop, don't repost it, take a look at what's there, investigate it, find out what the truth is. You may not even have to go as far as trace, but you need to be willing to take the time to figure out, is this really true, before I pass it on to somebody else.
And if you don't want to have to do all that, then maybe share something from a trusted news source that you know has already put in the due diligence to know if it's true. And then you don't have to research it, because you know it's from NPR or the Associated Press or people that verify their facts before they print it.
And I didn't put this because it would not be possible to talk this, but I thought we might put it on our page. There are charts out there that show the news sources and show them in a chart of, these are really left-leaning, these are really right-leaning, these are the ones that centrist. So if you want the centrist stuff, and I know NPR was on there, and the Associated Press was on there in the center. So if you want to be sure you're not getting that left-leaning or right-leaning, we'll put that on there so you can see which news shows or news networks you can probably trust.
That's a good idea. We'll put that on our social media page.
That SIFT evaluation, I do need to give credit to, was developed by a digital literacy expert from Washington State University, Michael Caulfield. He's the one that came up with these.
Talk about somebody that sees a need and develops a product. He nailed it.
He nailed it. If you use that, it'll help you judge, and whether online content can be trusted as being credible and reliable information, information. It's quick. It's simple. You can use it for social media posts, for memes, for statistics that somebody might post, videos, images, news articles, etc. And keep in mind, sometimes, I've even seen videos kind of like the memes where somebody's taken the whole interview and they've just cut bits and pieces out and you don't have any context, and maybe they're cutting out the bits and pieces of that person, their interview, that match the message that they're trying to. Yeah. So
I think that happens a lot.
It does. It's more and more. And once, you look up the whole video of what that person said, I've seen ones where, it's totally different from what they're trying to present as what that person said.
And that's becoming so much harder, Bobby, because of AI.
Exactly.
Because there are programs now that can take my face and my voice, analyze it, and make a video of me saying something I would never say, or something I don't believe in. And that is scary. And that's something Congress needs to get involved in and regulate.
I agree. It's really scary. There are some very reputable fact-checking organizations out there focused on U.S. national news. I mean, you can find for other places too, but since we live in the United States and we're talking about our government. And I have a list of these nonpartisan, and that's a key, nonpartisan and fact-based, statistic-based websites that you can go to. PolitiFact, which is politifact.org. But
not Politico.
Right. Do not confuse it. I had somebody argue with me a while back. They're like, yes, Politico. I'm like, no, because there is a Politico. It's a news organization.
It is.
But no, this is PolitiFact.
Yes.
There's also factcheck.org, the Washington Post fact checker, Snopes, which I know a lot of people use. That can be used for anything, but they also usually cover government-related issues. NPR has fact check, Media Bias /fact check, which is one I had not used, but I looked at it. It is also nonpartisan, and it appeared to be relevant and easy to use. There's one called Truth Be Told, and then the last one is Social Media Hoax Slayer.
Wow. Thank you for looking those up and listing them out, because I like it when we provide this kind of information that's takeaways that you can take this away, and next time you're on your phone and you see a sensational headline, which there are a lot of sensational headlines, you can just click on one of these and say, oh, no, that seemed like it was exaggerated, and now we know the truth.
There are also some other ones out there. I didn't write these down. There are some special sites for just scientific information to check the accuracy of ecological or environmental, thank you, truths or mistruths that are out there.
There are a lot of those.
I'll try to go back and maybe put a couple of those on too.
I never pictured growing up in this industry that we would be against such a huge enemy as fake news.
Right.
It really is. You can try to point your finger at a person who has divided America regardless of what side you're on, but at the end of the day, in my opinion, fake news is why we can't get along. Nobody knows the truth anymore. It is,
I think, a big part of our polarization. Yeah. We could fix some of that if people would just take the time to do some of the things we're talking about here. Instead of just believing it after you see it or hearing it, you take the time to actually look and see, is that the truth? Or is that a real video? Is that what that person, is that the totality of what they really said in their interview?
I always joke about Dad and the McDonald's news desk. Dad, I love you. I know you're not listening to my podcast because you're not in a podcast, but I wonder what they talk about down there, and I wonder how much of it is just stuff they're parroting that they heard, and then they all go their separate ways and repeat that to 5 more people, and again, we've got your snowball effect.
Right.
It really only takes a few seconds to check this out, and just know that every time you share something that you've not vetted or put anything into, it has the potential potential of really hurting somebody.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, really hurting, or there have been recent reports of people taking their lives because of things that snowballed out of control. So words have consequences, they have meaning, and if you're going to be on a platform preaching one thing or another, put some thought into it, because damages could happen. End of sermon.
The main point of this episode was don't fall victim to the fake news. Before you believe or repost something, take the time, just what you were just saying, take the time to check its validity. It's easier than ever. You're probably holding your phone in your hand or close by. You don't even need your laptop or your desktop computer anymore. It's that easy, to research a little bit. And sometimes you can just, put it in Google and you might get one of these fact check as one of the places to look. And they're using data, real facts to document what they're saying about whether something is the truth or not.
Bottom line, my takeaway is just because you see something and it looks legitimate, people are really good at dressing up fake news to look real. They're really good at coming up with great headlines that are going to make you click because, again, it's all about money. But just take the 10 seconds that it takes to check it. That's a good deed. It's like spreading bad gossip about somebody if you don't know it's true.
I think if you put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig.
Still a pig.
It's still a pig.
Good discussion on that. You know what? I think we could have probably gone on and on and on because that's such a huge problem, not just in America but globally right now. So,
and I'm sure we'll touch on it again when we talk about polarization. Maybe that'll be our next special episode.
I like that polarization. I wish we could find something to pull us back together as a nation. I hope we do. I've always got hope. When I lose my hope, smack me.
Same here.
Yeah, right. We have to sometimes prop each other up and say, nope, now listen, this seems bad, but we've still got hope. So thank you for that conversation. Thanks for looking that up. Now, pop quiz.
Pop quiz.
Pop quiz time.
Bueller.
All right, so last episode's question, what does the Constitution do or what is its purpose? If you said it sets up or defines the government and it protects the basic rights of Americans,
Ding, ding, ding.
there you are.
Got that one right.
Got that one right.
Yeah.
And again, I'll be posting the questions and answers on our Facebook page.
And now that sets us up for a question for next week.
Yes, this episode's question from the U.S. naturalization test. And I point that out again because remember, if you came here from some other country and you want to become a citizen,
You're required to know more.
you
than
have
us.
to. Yeah, you have to know. You have to know this stuff, which many of
We can't
us
tell you,
don't
but they
know.
have to know.
Well, I know it, but I mean,
you're
a lot
smart.
of people don't. Okay, so the question for this episode is: the idea of self-government is in the first three words of the Constitution. What are those three words?
Okay.
I think a lot of people know this one.
That better be one people get. So that's next week's question. The idea of self-government is in the first three words of the Constitution. What are those three words? Let us know. And now next episode,
We're going to talk about how our Constitution came about. What are the ideas behind it, and why was it organized the way it was?
And are we going to talk about how it's a living, breathing thing?
We probably will.
Might touch on that.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you for all the research today. I appreciate it. I really do. I know our listeners appreciate it. Please share our episodes. Tell people about us. Give us some feedback if you want a topic that you want us to discuss or dive into. Bobby's got the resources. She's got years of teaching, and what was the project that was it the We the People?
We the People
project.
I did with my 8th graders several years, the last few years I taught.
So she has a good depth on that. And if we don't know the answer, we will fact check and verify and report back to you. So please check us out on Facebook, Plain Civics. So that's it for this episode of Plain Civics, breaking down the basics. No politics, just facts. Thanks for listening. And until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.
This is Plain Civics. Join us for the journey as we break down the basics of how government works so you can make the government work for you.